9 months ago, I made a video called Wuthering Waves, Game First, Gotcha Second. It was an initial reflection on the beginning of the 2.0 patch cycle of Wuthering Waves, a game that I had been following with great curiosity and desire since hearing one of the first musical examples of its soundtrack a year prior to the game's release, called Flow. 9 months and 7 with an eighth to come patches later, do I still feel that Wuthering Waves moves past the gotcha monetization model and lands as a game? Yes. I think it does. I doubt highly that anyone that is even watching a reflective video on the past 9 months of a live service gotcha game is curious about the game, and if they are, I'd say, hold up, don't watch this, no, go try it out. But for the rest of you, I really think Kuro Games has done something really beautiful here. From the moment you cross over from the Black Shores region and head to Ridicida and the Ship of Fools, you are thrust into a wildly different place than the one that came before. Huanglong, Mount Firmament, and the Black Shores. Each of these places were laced with that anime Death Stranding vibe, that post-apocalyptic decaying society thing, and invited to a warm, vibrant society, a place of class, opulence, color, and a history. Some of the critique of this place, well-meaning or malicious, felt that this departure was in direct congruence to the original setting, but personally, this change was a welcome one. I instantly fell in love with Ragusa, seeing the echoes existing, milling about, the people going about their daily business, the order of the deep, the varied cast of characters. In 2.0, I felt that suddenly, much like the word itself, Rinashita, that we had arrived at a rebirth of what Kuro Games had initially envisioned with Wuthering Waves. 1.0, to me, still is boring. And while the combat carried much of the experiences in that 1.0 arc, I still feel that it needs to be adjusted and mended to ease the new player experience with how quality the 2.0 patch experience is in direct contrast to what came before. Yes, of course, this did improve in subsequent 1.0 patch cycles, but it still doesn't hold a candle to the radical improvements we see in 2.0, both in narrative pacing and structure, but also, because this is ultimately a music channel, in musical and atmospheric storytelling. Upon leaving the city of Ragusa, we are greeted with one of my favorite musical moments of 2025, the unveiling of the mesmerizing Rinascita landscape. It was one of those game magic moments that left me hungry and eager for more. But this feeling dissipated a bit with 2.1, the Waves Sing and the Cerulean Bird Calls patch, and really, while I wouldn't say we had very many filler patches, I definitely felt that 2.1, 2.3, and 2.6 were the weakest, in that order, patches of the year. It's hard, to be honest. This is a 2.0 problem. When the consistency and quality becomes so high, you end up feeling the dips in the quality a bit more. The highs are really high, but I did end up finding the lows a bit lower than they would have been, say, during 1.0. Regardless of that, 2.2, Tangled Truth and Inverted Tower was excellent and really, really strong. I'm talking AAA game strong. I just loved anything related to Cardathea in this game, and I consistently felt Kuro delivered on her. Not to mention the Cantarella arc and journey, yes, even Tongue Gate at the end of Cantarella's character trailer. Here was a patch that had near perfect, if not perfect pacing. An absolute peak that ascended to the heights of my experiences with Final Fantasy XIV. Our first moment seeing Fleur-de-Lis was mind-blowing to me, with complex imagery of the wave, and a satisfying fight and incredible music. Really, the moment we stabbed Fleur-de-Lis, losing the Sentinel, this whole sequence was astounding to me. With Glory I Shall Fall. Even now, I get goosebumps. Such a pivotal musical moment to this 2.0 cycle, and deeply important.
Seek out the future, where I am your blade. We'll find it together.
This music is a melancholic reminder that sometimes there's no going back, and we have to change the status quo. This was also the beginning of the song arc of 2.0. Interestingly, this began to feel a bit repetitive though, and less exciting. The theme songs were always terrific, a new song every final sequence. It definitely raised the hype moments and made them satisfying, but it did become predictable. When we first experienced it here in 2.2, it was such a wow experience. Again, not to say that those that have come after are bad. It introduced us to the False Sovereign theme, My Portia Rise, which isn't my favorite, but I do enjoy it. The Lady of the Sea hardcore metal ode to the Nameless Martyr.
It's not all about winning, but plays it till the last minute.
These are all excellent. And yet in 3.0, I'd like to see these big musical moments not just peak towards the end, but also be in the middle of stuff, just to shift up the predictability. Of course, I can't have a video about this year of Wuthering Waves without talking about patch 2.5, and by far the peak of this year for me after 2.2. What an arc for Frulova. What a journey to witness Frulova go down. The entire thing was just mesmerizing. I felt so connected to Frulova, and genuinely the entire patch I was sitting with bated breath. I watched other playthroughs of this patch. I'd never do that. I loved it. It was in a lot of ways perfect. There were some pacing issues near the beginning, but then it evened out right through the middle, and boy, it really carried. The ending was incredible, and I felt that we finally got a character in a gacha game, that it was allowed to die. And while obviously this has since changed in 2.7, I appreciate the effort to make a character that has depth, morally gray, not just a goody-goody, which, reflecting on it now, many of these characters were allowed to be more than just tropes, which is awesome. Circling back to the music, I have to say, gosh, there are so many good themes and melodies in this 2.0 patch cycle. It's really difficult to single any of them out. They're just all so unique and interesting, allowing themselves to lean on melody and musical storytelling. Whether it was a battle theme or an ambient piece, nothing felt out of place or confused. It all served a purpose and allowed itself to be strong. And even though I mentioned these tracks earlier, I have to give credit to Kuro's in-house team and the wonderful and talented composers that were hired out to handle tracks like Against the Tide. These tracks are infinitely re-listenable and enjoyable in, but especially out of context, which is more of a testament to how good they are. But also the random tracks, just in the overworld or the Alvarado Bank. There was music for everything, and it all really worked to give us a sense of connection to the world. Now, I haven't talked much about Septimon. While I enjoyed 2.4 and the introduction to Septimon and Lupa, of course, this was where I started to wane a bit. Not necessarily this patch, but at this point in the Wuthering Waves 2.0 journey, I began to feel myself shifting away from my committed interest in the game. It's not to say that I didn't enjoy the Septimon arc, because I did, but things started to shift for me. I just wasn't that interested in Septimon. It's not that it's badly made. I just started noticing pacing issues, drawn out conversations, long back and forths, pacing that felt like it didn't land for me. This was especially amplified by 2.6 and for a large chunk of 2.7 where I just didn't feel compelled at all. 2.6, I honestly almost skipped entirely, which you can't, since aspects of the main story are connected to Augusta and Yuno respectively. It's not that I mind those characters, I'm not invested in them. I personally just wasn't invested in them. Yuno, I did have a total 180 shift on though, and I ended up really enjoying the journey. But Augusta, even now, I don't really get why I played that story. I just found myself trying to get through the patch and holding on for things that I did enjoy. I mean, yes, the interactions with her as a child were very interesting, and I enjoyed seeing that in the setting, but pacing, I just didn't enjoy the patch very much. I usually tend to skip around in filler patches, and since this wasn't really filler at all, I ended up having to be beholden to it. At first, it genuinely felt like these patches with these specific characters in them were just there to get me to pull on the characters, which, to be fair, one could easily say that about every patch in a gacha game that's character focused. But in this case, that was just the vibe. And I'm not saying that's correct either, because I definitely changed my mind about Yuno, like I mentioned. It was just a lot of talking about plans and this and that. I would have appreciated a much tighter experience. You know, maybe this is ridiculous, but not everything needs to be a 3-hour story quest if you actually only have 1.5 hours of content to deliver. And that's fine. I wouldn't even mind that. I want a tighter experience. 2.7 really felt a lot the same, besides the last 1.5 hours or so of the second part of it. The pacing was just off. I felt that I was there sitting, watching characters speak versus watching them do anything. Obviously, I've played plenty of games in my life that have tons of dialogue. I mean, shoot, I've played 600 hours of Final Fantasy XIV, but even that game has serious pacing issues amongst other things. And in some cases, the pacing is worse than in WoW. My point is, I like narrative-driven games. I like Red Dead Redemption. Hell, I play MMOs all the time. 2.7 was just a lot. Maybe it's because I did it in one sitting. And maybe I shouldn't do that, but I'm sure lots of other people did the same thing. And it's not to say these patches are bad, because the truth is that really no aspect of WoW at this point is bad. I mean, besides 50-50 gambling, but we'll get there. It's just that I felt like it didn't always respect my time. Nor did I feel like interesting things were happening. Not to mention the whole Galbrena life story just seemed to come out of left field and filled out the patch, and I was supposed to care, but like, what if you don't care? You know what I mean? You don't, you gotta earn it a little bit. I'm not really sure where I stand on including character stories as part of the main quest. On the one hand, I like it, and on the other hand, I wish I could choose whether or not I want to interact with those stories. That said, I wouldn't have grown to like Yuno, as I said, quite as much without her quest being forced on me in 2.6 Part 2. I do think getting to the end of this was a bit muddy. In the future, I'd like to see some of the fat removed from the steak, a bit of a tighter narrative like I mentioned. I'd also like to go along with characters for a longer time. I think that the patch cycle character thing is becoming a trope in this game that is a bit tiresome. How cool would it be to spend an entire 9 months with characters that we establish and connect with on day 1 or something, and then add characters in addition to them eventually? Now, we had that a little bit in 2.0, but I'd love to see that expanded. I mean, Cardothea was basically there every patch. I loved that. Mixing and mingling with other characters, I think that's great. It helps us feel more connected. Maybe that's why I enjoyed the Frulova and the Cardothea arcs so much. To be fair, we have seen Frulova since 1.0. She's been with us for 2 years. Even Scar, who is making cameo appearances at this point, is always exciting to see, and I connect to both of those characters, including Cardothea, but separately, more than Cristoforo. After all, Cristoforo was technically the big bad of this particular patch, and yet I found myself connected to Scar and Frulova more, I guess probably because we've been with them longer. Overall though, all that aside, I really like where we're at with 2.0. The end of the Renacida arc ended really nicely, and while I usually cringe a little bit at the power of friendship stuff, this game felt more like an Avengers Assemble moment, and you know there's a difference. I'm down with anime tropes. I think they exist and have been used so much because they work. I just also want them to keep the story rooted in seriousness, and I felt that Wuwa did a really good job threading that needle there with the characters in the end, Galbrena included. Though, why wasn't her overclocking that big of a deal when we have an entire patch about overclocking with Jinshi? Even Camelia's overclocking is focused on and showcased at length in her story quest. I mean, it nearly kills her and radically changes her personality, doesn't it? In 2.7, the writers were just like, oh wow, she overclocked to save us, and we're supposed to be like, okay, wow, that's crazy. The great thing here is ultimately, this is all nitpicking. Yes, I do think the story structure needs to be tighter. We also need to ensure that the action combat game continues to have action combat events. It must be really difficult to please everyone, especially with the popularity and success that this game has deservedly garnered and achieved. And may it continue well into 3.0 and beyond, unless it's end of service between now and then. Before I go on, I want to talk about 50/50. No, do not defend it. Do not defend it. 50/50 is gambling. It makes tons of money. Don't bring up self-control. FOMO exists in gacha games. It's there on purpose. Time-gated characters and all that stuff, 50/50 sucks. It sucks so bad, and truly is something that I've grown to detest. I would never bother with a gacha game if I spent every day grinding out astrites from every possible crevice of the game for that one character I really wanted, only to lose my 50/50 to freaking Ling Yang or whoever else. I would uninstall. It's so disheartening. 50/50 makes gacha games really difficult to recommend. Recommending a game with a caveat sucks, because I genuinely believe that Wuwa is a good game and Kuro Games is a good developer. The fact that the 50/50 for characters is here, it just plain sucks. I know they followed the tried and true model that works. I get it, but I really think that as more and more games come out that move away from this system or switch to cosmetic gacha exclusively, I think we're going to see these 50/50 systems really fall out of flavor, if they aren't already. I get that this doesn't really have much to do with Wuthering Waves since it's just a monetization model and not a requirement to enjoy the game at all. It can be played free to play. I know thousands upon thousands of you do that, and I give you a lot of credit, but many of us are also not free to play. Self-control is an individual journey, and it's difficult to be all or nothing about it. I don't even care that gacha exists, really. I don't mind it, but 50/50 shouldn't. Not when experiences it comes with are such high quality. It drags a really great product down. I do think that there is still room to grow. I do think we haven't peaked yet, and I say that with love. I really do. We have stabilized after 1.0. We've arrived. We've been reborn. Now we grow. Now we tighten the belt. We focus on creating clean story structure, pacing, and continued narrative design. We continue to lean into melody and meaningful music to tell our game story, which we're already doing and will do more of. We find a way to make endgame content more meaningful by providing rewards that aren't just more astrites. I don't care what it is, but I think players would love to chase a carrot that isn't in-game currency for future characters. Skins for doing events, alternate outfits, more weapon skins, meaningful co-op experiences and opportunities. And Rover doesn't always have to be the hero. We're getting there. Let's do more of that. Overall though, I really liked Renacida. I'm excited to see where we go next. Excited to see how we continue to expand on the original plans detailed in 1.0. Are we going to go back to post-apocalyptic? what's next? The sky's the limit, even with the RetroArch rain on us. This to me is still a game first and a gotcha second. I stand by that statement. And if you've never played WUWA and have watched this video, then yeah, go download it, try it for yourself. I definitely think it's worth your time.